We saw yesterday there was the delay in the release of the hostages. Are we worried about that? Does it show how fragile this truce is, or do you think there was just a little bit of a glitch?
Well, I think we should be worried because we have to understand Hamas is trying to play the card of the hostages as much as it can, because for Hamas, the card of the hostages is almost the last card left to trying to save his rule in Gaza Strip. So he's trying to extract as much as possible to prolong holding the hostages, hoping that this series of almost endless truce or ceasefire or whatever the name for that is, will actually result in the end, dissolving the Israeli military campaign, but that way Hamas could secure its remain rule in Gaza Strip.
Do you see these exchanges continuing? Do you see the truce being extended?
Well, it is possible. Again, as I said before, reminding us all, the Israeli government ordered the Israeli Defense Forces with two objectives. One is to bring back the hostages back home, and the other thing is to topple down Hamas rule in Gaza Strip. These are the two major objects of the Israeli military campaign. So as long as Israel can bring back hostages and get done and over with that specific objective, this is of course good, and it has to be the first priority. But again, as I said before, Hamas will try to play that card as much as he can.
And what will happen if they continue releasing hostages? Is there the possibility that the two sides could come to the table? I mean, I know right now they're not talking face to face, but is there a chance this could bring them together?
No, I don't really see that, because we have to remember there is another yet major issue that has not been discussed yet, but this is an enormously significant issue, and this is the issue of the Israeli soldiers that are being kept hostages in Gaza Strip. This is a totally different episode in that specific one. It's a zero-sum game, roughly speaking, so I don't really see the two sides coming to the table.
So what happens? How does this unfold once tomorrow ends and the 4-day truce is over?
Well, roughly speaking, Roger, there are two options. Israel resume its military operation, as Israel says, reminding us all, according to the understanding, sort of speaking, Tuesday morning, the whole military campaign is supposed to be resumed, unless there is another phase of another exchange, which may be the case in the end of the day. So we may see a situation of this truce that is kind of like being prolonged for a specific period of time, but it cannot go on endlessly. It cannot go on endlessly. It has to be done and over at some point. And then I would say that we should expect the resume of Israeli military operation in Gaza Strip.
And what would be the deciding factor for that? When do you think that Israel would say, okay, we're not going to progress anymore?
If Israel will come to the conclusion that Hamas is clearly playing games here, Israel will go back to the card that it has in its possession, and this is the military pressure. President Biden actually alluded to that in a statement that he made, I think, the other day, basically saying, look, Hamas understands only the language of pressure. In other words, if Hamas will continue to play games, he is going to be exposed to a mounting Israeli military pressure. And so in the end of the day, Hamas will have to do its own calculation, whether it's going to prolong with that card or basically is going to release the hostages.
And if the military starts up again, the offensive, what will it look like? Will they go into the south? Will Hamas be ready for them?
The answer for both is yes, Roger. I mean, Israel has to, up until now, the most part of the Israeli military campaign was in the northern part of Gaza Strip, where it has most of its governmental symbols and some significant part of its military power. But we have to remember Hamas holds significant military power in the south part of Gaza Strip. It's also a different area in a way in comparison to the northern part, because there are 8 large refugee camps located in the south part of Gaza Strip. I just have to make clear that when I'm saying refugee camps, I'm not talking about a compound of tents and tin cans. I'm talking about massively urban areas in the south part of Gaza Strip, also in proximity to the Gaza-Egypt border. So the whole area of South Gaza is also partially rural area and open area and partially massively urban populated area. We should definitely anticipate a very fierce fighting going on in the south part of Gaza Strip between Israel and Hamas and Islamic Jihad militants that are deployed there. And they are deployed more or less the same way they are deployed in the northern part of Gaza Strip, meaning basically using the whole system of tunnels and underground bunkers to try and to operate and fight the Israeli soldiers from those tunnels. So we probably see more of what we saw in the northern part, and I would even say in much more intensifying way.
All right, Avi, thank you very much for your insight today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Avi Melamed, a Middle East geopolitical intelligence analyst.